Good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. Welcome to today's Quiz the Wiz session. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. We are recording today's session, and everybody that has registered will receive an email with a link to the on-demand version. Today's session will run for a total of 30 minutes, which includes a question and answer segment at the very end. For the presenters, I may pose one or two relevant questions during the presentation as they come up, but these will be limited and subject related. For the most part, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them via the Q&A panel on your GoToWebinar console, and we will address them towards the end of the presentation. Lastly, if for some reason we don't have time to address all of your questions in today's live event, please be assured that we will follow up with you directly. My name is Jonathan Smythe, and I will be your host today. I've been with Shea for 10 years and have a background in commercial and production management with Marks & Spencer. Additionally, I have 20 years of experience in the IT industry, providing complex solutions to a variety of different businesses. A few quick words about Shea. Our team has many years of experience and expertise helping our customers in multiple industries. We believe that there is potential for excellence in every business, and we look beyond the status quo to make their businesses better. Our passion is guiding customers to achieve business excellence. We are an essential service according to the definition of the province of Ontario. We have and will continue to stay open to service our clients as we are a global provider of ERP, CPM, BI, and demand-driven technologies and solutions focused on transforming supply chains. Shea Global supports operations in 25 countries, from offices in Canada, the US, the UK, India, and the Philippines. Are we ready to meet the panel? I think we are. So the first person in our panel is Tracy. Tracy is the Chief Executive Officer at Shea Global. Tracy has over 30 years of experience building high-performance teams to deliver excellent customer service. Next in our all-star lineup is Grantley Smith. Grantley Smith is the Senior Solutions Architect at Shea Global. He has over 25 years of experience with a variety of technologies. Grantley's expertise is in delivering high-value custom solutions for clients with complex requirements across a variety of industries. Are we ready to quiz the whiz? Let's move on.
I should just mention, sorry, Jonathan, before you carry on, I also have beside me, not on camera, Jerry Biermer, who's another one of our team specializing in GP accounts.
Perfect. Welcome, Jerry. Okay, so the first question is in relation to bank entries. Now, this was a bit of a cryptic question, if I'm honest with you. And the question was phrased as being, this is in regards to both a solid foundation, but also security. To begin with, it would be the online version provided by Office 365. Very cryptic, make of that as you will. If the person that submitted that question is listening, if it's possible to provide a little clarity, we would be grateful. But in the meantime, is it possible to give us a little bit of an overview, Grantley, in terms of bank entries and the foundation for that?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of an overview for sure. Bank entries in our GP world are a little bit unique in that GP treats the bank as a separate subledger. So in some systems, you're able to enter journals and have those appear in your bank rec. In some systems, you're able to enter other transactions and have them appear in your bank rec. In GP, the bank is treated as a subledger. So automatically, anything that's booked in AR as a cash receipt or AP as a payment goes to the bank reconciliation as a bank entry. But anything else that you want to put through has to be entered as a bank transaction, not as a journal entry. Otherwise, it doesn't show in your bank rec. So GP has a couple of different bank transactions. They're found under the financial series. We have standard bank transactions, which will allow you to do an increase, a decrease, a payment, or a receipt. And then we have bank transfers, where you can move funds between accounts and between currencies. And then we have a deposit function as well, and the deposit function allows you to group together multiple cash receipts as you would do on a deposit slip, so that you have one amount that actually hits the bank rec in order to do the reconciliation, so you don't have to reconcile every cash receipt. In more recent versions, there's been an option in the cash receipt window to post the receipt directly to the bank. So if somebody electronically transferred you funds, that would be a one-to-one cash receipt to deposit. So they've given you the ability to bypass the deposit window and put the cash receipt directly into the bank reconciliation. And then there are some external functions around your banking facilities that give you access to electronic banking capabilities like EFT transactions, like bank reconciliation electronically if you get a file from your bank. And I believe we've got a question also coming up in a moment about Lockbox, which is GP's end solution to a function that your bank can provide you, which is the grouping together of cash receipts and apply information to mass apply cash into multiple customer accounts from a file from your bank.
Perfect.
Beyond that, yeah, if we don't have any specific follow-up question, that's just a quick overview of how GP does it and how it treats it, and it is a little different to some other systems.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Grantley. Okay, so for our next question, is there a quick way to inactivate or deactivate a list of some 200 vendors?
There are a couple of ways of doing this. Let's go through the easy options. The inactivate flag itself, the active inactivate flag, is on the vendor card, and it's just a flip from active to inactive, and that stops the vendor from being able to be used for as long as it's marked as inactive. It doesn't delete it, it doesn't remove it, it just deactivates it, so it won't get picked up in a check run. You can't enter an invoice against it, those kinds of things. Now, if you want to interact with a group of vendors, there is some functionality in the navigation lists in GP. If you're familiar with those, whoever asked this question, and the nav list will allow you to do some activity against multiple vendors. It will allow you to put them on hold. So if you filter your window to the criteria that you want to shorten the list of vendors, you can mass apply a hold to them, but it doesn't have a mass inactivate. The two other ways of doing this easily are either you can record a macro. GP has the ability to record macros. So you can record a macro by turning on the macro record function that's under tools. And if you record that macro for one inactivator vendor, then what you can do is you can open that macro up in Excel or Word, and you can turn it into a multiple iterations of those steps and just replace the vendor ID in each step where it picks vendor, run the macro, and it'll go through all 200. The last alternative to tackling this would be to do it from the back end. Inactivate, the switch from active to inactive, is something that can actually be safely done with a SQL script. So if you have an in-house administrator that understands how to write a SQL script, or if you come to us with a list of the 200 vendors, we can create a SQL script that will very quickly update all of those vendors to inactive on the back end. And that's actually perfectly safe to do as well, because it's not transactional in nature.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much, Grantley. Okay, so for our next question then, when applying a payment against large volumes of invoices, sometimes the payment crashes in the middle of the application and can only be fixed by our IT team. Why does this happen? Is there a fix for it? And how do we prevent it from happening in future?
Boy, that's specific. All right, so short answer, I'm unaware of this being an issue in any version of GP that I've ever worked with. It may be related to the number of people in the system at one time performing the same function. If multiple people are doing applies at the same time and it's a large volume of transactions across a large number of people, it's possible that that's causing problems, particularly if you're having connectivity issues. GP being an on-prem based solution, if you're having connection issues, if you're having slowdowns on your network, those kinds of things will affect your GP transactions and your GP server. It's running on the same network as everything else, and it's communicating from client to server, so it can cause issues if there are other underlying problems. One of the other things I would suggest is that also the volume of data that's in the system might be contributing to this. In specifically the accounts receivable subledger in GP, transactions do not automatically clear to history when you fully apply them. In payables, they go straight to history. You fully apply an invoice, that invoice moves directly to history. In AR, that doesn't happen. The transactions stay open, and they stay open just in case you want to undo the apply later. If you applied it against the wrong invoice, rather than send it to history and shut it down, it leaves it in the open transaction list. Over time, that open transaction data set is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it is going to start to cause slowdowns in the apply window. It's going to cause slowdowns in the open transaction inquiry windows, and it could affect this problem as well. The answer to that is that there is a process that can be run. It's under routines that we recommend our customers run periodically. There's no one answer to this, but it's periodically to move those fully applied completed transactions to history, which actually moves them to another table and another data set and shrinks that open data set potentially quite dramatically. If you haven't run it in 10 years and you have a lot of AR invoices, that apply information and that open information file could be enormous. And volume alone, along with these other things, could cause the problem. I can't say does, because I don't have any record of this being an issue, except under specific support cases. It's not a known problem, it's not a thing, but volume of open transactions over a long period of time would grow that file exponentially and could cause problems just because of the performance and the number of records that are there. So under routines in AR, there is a remove to history function. I can check the exact name of it if I just check my 1 second. I'll tell you what it's called. Give me a moment because my GP session closed. Under AR, under routines, there is an option called paid transaction removal. It sounds scary because it says removal. It doesn't remove them from the system. It removes them from the open file to history. And all you do is you set a cutoff date. So everything up to, let's say, 6 months ago, because you're unlikely to have problems going back further than that, or even a year ago. And then all completed transactions as of that date will move to the history file and open up space in the open file. And that's about the best that I can do on that one right now. I know this is specific, and it's from a specific customer that I think has raised this through our support desk in the past.
Okay, no problem.
That's about the best I've got for it right now. I would suggest we at some point try the remove paid transactions, move them to history, and see if the reduction in volume stops the problem.
That's great. Thank you, Grantley. And I guess just to add to that, probably it would be prudent if the customer was to take a backup just before they did that, just in case there was a problem midway through that.
I would suggest, given that the volume in that table is probably immense, that they do it in a test company first to see how long it takes, because it might take a little while. Okay. Yes, a backup as well before doing it live, but even doing it live, there could be an impact on performance while it's doing it.
Yep.
And it may run for more than 30 seconds. It may run for minutes, possibly depending on the volume, even an hour potentially. So I would suggest testing that to see what that time frame is, so that you know what you're getting into before you do it live. And when you do it live, definitely a backup first, and definitely everybody off the system, just because of the size of the data set.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so our next question, which I think you've probably already partially answered anyway, is how does Lockbox work with GP? So I think you alluded to this earlier.
Yes, Lockbox is a function that the bank can provide you with, first of all. And what the bank is doing is it's consolidating the data it's received from multiple cash receipts and combining them into a data file that you can actually access depending on what the deal is you have with your bank. In GP, the lockbox function is to take that file from the bank and to perform a mass cash apply in your accounts receivable ledger from that file. That obviously requires the file to have the right information in it about the customer, the right information in it about the documents that are being paid by each cash receipt. So first of all, it's about getting the data from your customers to your bank correctly. And then there is a configurator in GP that will let you map that file to your AR subledger. And then there's a lockbox integration routine that you can run, which will go out, grab the file from wherever you put it on your network, do a mass cash apply, and then give you a report on success, partial, and fail, just like electronic bank rec does.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
That's lockbox in a nutshell, very quickly.
Thank you very much. You have a very broad knowledge, Grantley, a very broad knowledge. So the next question then, can I transfer transactions from one customer to another?
Short answer, no.
Okay.
There is part of the fundamental entry of a transaction in GP in the AR subledger is to enter it to a customer. Once that transaction has been posted to that customer, it's been tagged to the customer ID, it's been tagged to that account. There's no transfer function in GP to move it from one AR account to another AR account. There is a way of moving it to a vendor. If it's a refund, we have refund check functionality, but there's no transfer function in GP to automate the moving of a misposted AR record to another account. You have to unfortunately do it the long way around, which is credit it off one and put it back on the other.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess you've got the audit trail of the error and the correction. So it's probably
you've got
better
the audit trail. The only downside to that is you've also got two transactions now on the wrong customer. You've got an invoice and a credit.
Yep.
And even if you apply them, the next customer statement you issue will show the invoice and the credit. Okay. So that may confuse the customer that you did it wrong for in the first place. Yep. When they see an invoice appear and disappear from their account that isn't theirs. But that's part of there is actually a switch on generating a customer statement in GP that says show previously applied documents. If you turn that switch off before you generate the statement, that transaction won't show.
Perfect. Perfect. That's good. Thank you very much. So our next question, and actually for this next question, just to give the attendees today a little bit of advance notice, we do have a blog piece coming out in the next week or two that addresses this specific question. But could we talk to the transition to Business Central from GP and whether there's anything that can help us in terms of that move?
I'm actually going to keep quiet for a moment, possibly, as everybody on this call is in Canada and has to listen to nothing but two Essex boys talking to each other for the first 20 minutes. I'm going to let Jerry, who is sat to my right at a socially distanced distance away, 46 Timbits apparently, and give Jerry the mic for a moment and let him talk to this because he's experienced this exact question and these projects from a couple of our GP customers already.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I don't have the English accent. I am a true Canadian boy. There isn't a direct route from GP to Business Central. And one of the main reasons for that is that fundamentally at the GL structure level, the two solutions are different. GP runs with a fixed chart of accounts. Yeah, I'm not writing that. GP runs with a fixed chart of accounts, whereas Business Central works dimensionally, where the structure isn't quite as formalized. Therefore, the transition between the two isn't a quick and easy pick up the data and move it somewhere else. There are integrations, there are a number of moving pieces that have to be put into place. And it's not a one size fits all. So no tool has been built that's going to do that. It is, I don't want to say manual process, but it is an involved process that will take a bit of time and a bit of planning. It can be done. We're not pushing that this is something that can't be done. This is definitely manageable and has been done, but there is no automated tool.
I think that pretty much sums it up. It is that change in account structure. GP is a fixed string, fixed length accounting structure. Business Central, more modern, dimensional structure. It's an opportunity to revisit and rebuild your chart of accounts from a financial reporting standpoint, and then that change in configuration flows through the rest of the ledgers that are in Business Central. So the straight port across is usually not the right answer for the businesses that are doing it. We've done this for a number of customers already. It's not horrendously painful. It's not unachievable. It's just an opportunity to revisit that config and revisit those setups and get it working in the best way that Business Central can work for you, because it is a different application.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Grantley and Jerry.
Sorry, Jonathan, if I may just jump in for one quick little second. I feel it's time to hear female voice, boys. Sorry, but just to expand on that discussion. The other thing that I'd like to add is just that according to some of the marketing and a lot of the online blogs and stuff that you may see, it's not necessarily you go from GP to Business Central. We have a lot of customers where I've had that conversation, and Business Central is an excellent solution for some businesses, but we have had discussions with others where other Microsoft solutions may be a better fit if you're looking at changing from GP. But the third point that I would say is that there's no need to really change from GP. So I don't know if this question is coming from marketing hype or from a business need, but that's why it's important to talk to us at Shea, because we can help make sure that you're making the, if you are planning to migrate, you're making it with the expectation of what it will be different no matter what you choose, but making sure that it achieves your goals effectively is very important. And so it's not just a straight line. Sorry.
That's a good point, Tracy. I think, yes, if you've just seen something that says GP is dead, move to Business Central, that is not a good reason to follow that path at all. It's A, not true, and B, not necessarily the right route to take.
Perfect. Thank you, Grantley, and thank you very much, Tracy. And I should also say, Tracy, congratulations, because in my introduction, I promoted you accidentally from Chief Operations Officer to Chief Executive Officer.
I noticed, but I wasn't going to complain.
Congratulations.
Yes, our real CEO might have something to say about that, but
he might. He might.
But he's not
okay,
here.
So yes. So let's have a look at the next question then. So could we have the next question?
How are we doing on time, Jonathan?
We've got 7 minutes left.
All right.
Okay, so could we have the next question, please?
I think that is the next question. Is there anything I can do?
Okay, so some additional questions then. Is there a way to charge one PO line item to multiple cost center or charge accounts at the time of creating the purchase order?
I'm sorry, I was reading the question on the screen. Run that by me again.
Is there a way? So this is a slightly different question.
Okay.
So I had asked a question that had come through the panel.
Okay, fire away.
And that question is there a way to charge one purchase order line item to multiple cost center / charge accounts at the time of creating the purchase order?
Ooh, that's a really good question, which I hadn't prepared for in advance. In the purchase order entry window, the purchase order entry window assumes by default that every line has a distribution account and it's associated at the detail level. So for each line that you put on a PO, for each item that you put on a PO, there is an associated single GL account where the expense is going to go. Now, there is the option at time of receiving to change that account, or at time of invoice match to change that account. And in those windows, if I remember correctly, you have the ability to open up, yes, I do remember correctly, in either receivings window or in the invoice match window, you can open and edit the distributions so that you can take that one default GL account for that one line item and split the distributions across multiple accounts. But you can't do it on the purchase order because the purchase order doesn't go anywhere or do anything or create a transaction. The first transaction that's booked in the system is either receiving against it or an invoice match against it, and that's when you can meddle with the distributions. You can't do it on the PO when you create the PO. It's one GL account per line, but it doesn't mean anything until you get to the receiving.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry,
Now,
Jerry just had a...
So if you had the same item that was going to two different departments, you'd have to set up two separate lines?
If you wanted to do that on the PO, yes.
At PO creation.
At PO creation, if you wanted to point the same thing twice at two different departments, you can do that on the PO, but you need two separate lines to do it. Otherwise, you're down to editing the distributions on the receipt or the invoice match.
okay, perfect. All right. So we've got 4 minutes left. We have two other ad hoc questions that have come through the Q&A panel. And the next question is, can the payables summary window also list the outstanding invoices corresponding to the total?
The payables summary window. So in the payables summary window, it presents, let me see if I can just pull one up for a minute. It's an inquiry only window, and it gives you a summary of the types of transactions against a vendor or a range of vendors, and it gives you their aging buckets at the bottom, the aging of those outstanding transactions. It does not have any drill through capabilities, and the reason it doesn't is because the first field says pick a vendor or range of vendors or category of vendors, and therefore it doesn't necessarily know where to drill through to from that window. Okay. So the window itself is flat with no drill down functionality because of the variations in ranges and the variations in data sets that are available for selection. If somebody out there has a specific requirement for a specific reason, there's probably another way of solving that. Maybe it's using a smart list, maybe it's looking at one of the other windows, but that particular window, it wouldn't be advisable to try and modify it to give it drill through capabilities because of the variables at the top. It actually performs a calculation on the fly based on that selection, populates all the fields. It would be, yeah, no, there will be a better way of achieving whatever it is the person asking that question is trying to get to as an end result, for sure.
Okay. No problem. All right, so we've got 2 minutes left. So the final one, when doing the bank reconciliation, is there a way to show the grand total for all EFTs done on the same date?
When doing the bank reconciliation?
Yeah, so when doing the bank rec, is there a way to show the grand total for all EFTs?
Oh, this is because, I know why this is. This is because in the payables subledger, each EFT transaction is considered a payment. And because of that, by default, they post to the bank rec as individual transactions when what actually leaves your bank account is the total of the EFT file for the day or for the transfer that you did. Sorry, Tracy?
Sorry, I just had to give a little wow, fangirl. Sorry, continue.
So by default, every EFT transaction is a payment. Each payment posts to the bank rec individually, and what comes out your bank is the total of the EFT file that you transferred, which means in electronic bank rec, when you get to it, or even in manual bank rec, you've got to tick off 15 EFT or 100 EFT payments to match one amount leaving your bank account. We have worked around this in the past. I don't have one specific answer for whoever asked that question right now, but I do know we have worked around this in the past and we have dealt with it in the past for precisely this reason. So
okay.
I know what they're asking. I understand what the problem is. It's easier to deal with electronic bank rec because you can manipulate the bank file on the way in. In manual bank, it's a little trickier. But I know we have consultants that have answered this question before. Unfortunately, none of them are here right now, but we can pick that up afterwards for whoever that was.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Grantley. Okay, so we've hit the top of the hour. So what I would like to say is that, of course, if you would need more help, then feel free to drop us a line at info@showglobal.com. I would like to thank everybody for attending today, for taking the time to submit your questions, but especially I would like to thank our panel, which consisted of Tracy, Grantley and Jerry, and of course Marina, our head of marketing, for arranging all of this. So thank you very much all, and I wish you all a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Jonathan.